Bienvenidos a un episodio más de Reinventándonos podcast, un podcast donde invitamos a personas que están enfrentándose a un cambio organizacional o bien nos están dando herramientas para reinventarlos hoy para el futuro. Hoy estamos con Jurriaan Kamer, que es consultor, colega or designer, agile, trabaja para The Ready, él se encuentra en Utrecht, en Holanda, y pues vamos a hablar principalmente sobre agilidad, Self Management Teams y su libro Fórmula X, How to Reach Extreme Acceleration in Your Organization. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, well, we always start with a checking round, and we have one to answer to ask what you value most about your team.
It's a good one. Yeah, I think with my team at the Ready, what I value most is that we are open to experimentation a lot, right? We are a fully self-managed organization and we practice what we preach. We try everything out that we teach our clients as well. And yeah, this experimentation mindset is just really good. Just being good with being uncomfortable in experimentation is what comes to mind.
Well, here at Polymath kind of that. We value that suddenly if someone have a better idea or see like have a better solution, we say, okay, you go. You are now like have the leadership, so we can change without no egos. That flows good. I like that.
Cool.
So well, I read your book. You wrote a spectacular book, Formula X, How to Reach Extreme Acceleration in Your Organization. And I like it because it's like kind of the narrative is like a novel, you know, and that helps with the narrative. And there's like this funny owner. I will not tell the spoilers about it, so you can read it. And I see like kind of comfortable. And we see many things, kind of this in the organization, that sometimes we have like CEOs at C-level, like kind of comfortable or kind of rock stars sometimes. And sometimes we have also like owners far from the work, or also owners like trying to now change the organizations. But how can we, even we have both cases, far or closer or micromanagers, how can we wake up like the owners and the CEOs? I don't know if there's also a sweet spot from working.
And when do you say wake up, what do you mean?
If they are like pretty comfortable, okay, we have to change, but okay, things always do that this way, and there's no problem. I don't see anything wrong. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's I guess the biggest question is, you know, especially when talking to these roles, the founder of the company or the CEO of the company, what do they care about, right? Often they have, especially in the case of an owner, they have the responsibility for making sure there's some profit coming out of the business, right? And the CEO have similar targets often. You know, are they achieving the results? Are they achieving the customer satisfaction? Are they achieving the purpose of the organization? Those are all good questions. And then, you know, it is definitely important that they connect with that, right? Do they see anything that is in the way of, you know, making that happen? And if the answer is no, then they're probably not looking at it, or they're just spoiled. I don't know. But I guess, you know, when we get in conversations, that's the main question. Like, what do they think is in their way of the organization or themselves of doing the best work of their lives? So those are powerful questions that we play with, and they can often make or break a transformation, right? I mean, in the book, in the story of the book, like you said, it's a novel, so you'll have a couple of characters, and one of the characters is Hank, this very erratic founder of the company. And he was actually modeled by some of the founders, CEOs that I've worked with in my past career. So some of their characteristics are actually very much resembling the original person. You know, they must be high energy. They must be, you know, wanting to start something. Otherwise they wouldn't have started the business successfully. But then obviously what is their new role, right? What is they're transitioning into a different role in the business. Are they hands-on? Are they hands-off? And we see some of that dynamic in the story of the book as well, where we follow the managing director of the business, who's not the founder, but he is being appointed by the founder to keep, take care of the core organization. And that creates all sorts of interesting dynamics.
The ones who are watching or listening to this, I deeply recommend, because you are like kind of engaged from the first page, and see what will happen here. And you can also like feel your organization, or you can feel like, okay, I was working that kind of job. and there's like this phenomenon too, like this Kitchen Quick, the organization name is kind of a Thai organization, like kind of okay, we have like a way of working, but also like finger pointing at problems, and Ronald make this exercise trying to listen better and trying to see what problems they have and what can they solve. But how can we change like a Thai organization? How can we change this finger pointing? I don't know if it's kind of gradual or it's kind of a process, like it's like evolving little bit by little bit.
Yeah, it's about, how do you set some change in motion? I think in the story in the book, it's done by it's created by an external factor, right? There's this sudden need for them to get almost like 10 times faster in their way they deliver the product. And again, we won't spoil the whole story here, but there's this external factor that creates the need for change. It doesn't always need to be that radical. I believe that we want to embark organizations on a journey of continuous improvement, and that doesn't need to be it doesn't always need to be through a crisis. I think it's more productive actually to work with what is possible, like getting teams inspired into the question of what might be possible if we would get rid of these roadblocks. And if it's not necessarily immediately for the customer, what would it do for your own work life if you wouldn't have all this frustration? Let's work with those frustration, with those tensions, and put it into something productive instead of just complaining at the water cooler. I think that is in the end the journey we want to get these organizations on. But it does start somewhere, right? Aaron, the founder of the Ready, wrote a book called Brave New Work, and it's called Brave for a reason, right? It's literally about taking a little bit of interpersonal risk, maybe trying something that is very counterintuitive for the organization, in order to try to get to some place which is better than where you currently are.
Yeah, I like that statement also for the Brave New Work. Also a great book, and we recommend that to read. And yeah, I think like they have to do a step forward and try to change things for good. I don't know, and sometimes in this process, in the book they experiment with cross-functional teams, and that's actually one guy. I think I don't know if it's from I don't remember well, it's implementation or the planning, that have to go away, and also the customer experience, because they actually made a team, a cross-functional team.
Yeah.
And in some process can happen this like, okay, we don't need more functions of HR, or probably HR doesn't exist anymore in the future, or project manager. But what can we do with these people that are, I don't know, good people, even competent, but the organization is evolving, and suddenly, okay, the role I was doing is not necessary now.
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot, obviously, when you start to break down bureaucracies. You'll find some people without a job, right? Or not necessarily without a job, but the role they were playing is no longer necessary. And I think the best way to deal with that is to have an adult conversation with them, and to say, listen, I mean, you see that this is changing. You see that the work you've done before, which was super valuable back then, is no longer valuable today. What would you like to do with that? That is all based on the assumption that the company doesn't need to downsize, right? So if you need to do downsizing, well, then you can still do that in a very people positive way, where you help people find their next job and give them a good package when they leave. But it's all about adult conversations where I mean, my best hope would be that the organization allows people to take on roles in different teams, and that they don't think of the people in their company like, this is a project manager, this person is labeled as a project manager, so that's probably the only thing this person can do. Mm-hmm. I think that's very naive, and it's not how humans are. Humans are highly adaptable beings. We are all, we're all shaped by our talents and skills and experiences. So we can actually play lots of different roles. But obviously, if you want to become, or if you want to keep on some kind of career path of being the ultimate project manager, and there's no project managers left, well, then maybe the best thing for you is to leave, right? So there's different possibilities there.
Yeah, and I like that you say like adult from to adult. And right now we see many in organizational leaders in Latin America, I don't know if in European or US, that sometimes they have like a unmature or have the other side, like pretty mature leaders, and have like this deep consciousness. And sometimes we see like, okay, these people can make sense not only in a technical way, but also in a human way, the way they are like, okay, like adults. I don't know if you face with this in sometimes, or what can you do, like, okay, to have also like a personal evolution or a personal, in the way they see work and the way they treat people. I don't know if you can tell us like some tips for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially true, I think, for people in leadership positions, that this level of self-awareness is extremely important. Right, understanding what is their driver for being in that position. Is it ego driven? Is it control driven? And what is their mindset around how they view their people? Right, we go back to Douglas McGregor in the 60s, who wrote a book about I think it's called The Human Enterprise, right, which contains the theory X, theory Y. Like how do we fundamentally believe we need to deal with people? Do we think that people need to be told what to do? Do we think that people need to be controlled, otherwise they'll do irrational things? Or do we actually believe that people can self-manage and are actually, they would do the rational right thing to do if they understand what it is that they can do to contribute their value and purpose? So yeah, I mean, definitely you'll see immature managers or leaders struggling with some of that, especially if their role shifts. But actually, when you work with leaders that are very self-conscious and are very people positive, they will probably not have a problem with letting go of their authority and distributing that to the teams, because they understand that that's the best thing to do, and actually relieves them from some stress as well. Right. I recently worked with a founder of a fast growing organization, and he just gets so frustrated that everybody seems to wait for his approval. While he constantly says like, well, actually you can go and do your thing. You don't need to ask for approval every time. So he's really trying to change his own behavior to change the dynamic. And I think that's what it takes if you want to create a more empowered organization where people are autonomous and take ownership and accountability. You want basically to see leadership at every level of the organization, and being less reliant on the kind of the traditional structure.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I like how you explain it, and it also connects with this question. Like, I don't know if, for example, we saw in the book we read that is, or we can interpret like there's like no psychological safety. They feel like kind of afraid of certain things. Also, the owner, like he also, okay, how can we stop this owner to stop doing things that we don't like, and we don't know if there's another surprise at the end of the week, But how come, I don't know if the psychological safety comes during the process of changing, or how can psychological safety be our ally in the change process?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think, I mean, we usually just work with what exists. So if you're talking into a team, you're trying to help them change the way they work, you'll quickly notice if people are afraid to speak up, if they are afraid to propose something, if they don't give feedback. And I mean, using the techniques that that we use and you probably use too, like speaking in rounds, making sure there's equal participation in the meeting, you're already breaking that dynamic. But it definitely takes time for that safety to build. And I think it's something we do during the process, right? When you introduce, if you work on the operating system of the organization and you for example, introduce retrospectives, well, then every time you have a retrospective and you facilitate it well, then hopefully the level of safety goes up a little. The more adult conversations are happening in the team, the more people might feel safe. But of course, it can also be broken by certain people in the team. And I mean, as coaches, as facilitators, as change agents, we work with that, but it's not something we can address directly, I think. So there are definitely techniques out there, but I usually don't run something like a psychological safety improvement workshop. I mean, that's not something I really believe in. I'd rather talk about what are the expectations of this team? What's the shared purpose of this team? Who holds what decision rights? What's the role of this person? What's the role of that person? And when can we sit down and talk about the results and give each other feedback? Like, those are the things, so the practices you can use, and that over time builds this safety. It's not something that's automatic. And I don't think it's something that we can influence directly that easily. It's like the idea of working on the culture. Like, how do you do that, right? It's some of our colleagues call it it's a shadow, right? It's not something you can. It's a result of something. It's not something you can influence directly. And I think psychological safety falls a little bit in the same bucket.
Nice.
As a concept, it's really useful as an idea of what it might be, but it's not so useful as a way of getting there, in my mind.
I completely agree too. That we can be, I don't know, like also like as some colleagues say, that people don't believe in change until they actually change. They probably don't believe in psychological safety until they feel in psychological safety, until they are like, how do you say with the red, like doing what you preach, like.
Yeah. And I guess also, I mean, if you go, so one way to get there a little bit is through appreciative inquiry, right? You can ask people like, what was the best team you've ever been part of? And people usually have an example, either within work or outside of work, right? The team that organized a wedding, for example, or the team that, it could be anything. It could be a previous work experience, or it could be in personal life. And when they know what were the characteristics there, then you can actually get to like, well, what were some of the things that you did in that team? Well, we talked openly, we were direct, we gave each other feedback, but we didn't try to destroy each other, right? And you can actually use that as a segue into making working agreements. But doing that exercise is just a start, right? It's not, you don't have psychological safety right after. It's a process to get there. And many people do have examples, I guess, of good teams. And so it's an interesting concept and a useful concept to use, but you need to work around it or with it, I think, almost. Like, it's the water. Like, if you're in an aquarium and we are all the fish, it's literally the water between us. It's not necessarily, it's something we see it, but it's hard to influence.
Yeah. I remember I remember the first time I know about you was like with this post about talking about Spotify. I just say, don't copy that model. And it was pretty nice. And now that Spotify now is also in the spotlight from the work from anywhere politic, and they say, okay, we can copy that, we can do that. How can we personalize, or what can we copy, or what can be ours, taking into account this article or now from work from anywhere politics?
Yeah, so when you say work from anywhere, do you mean that they allow people to work from home or from anywhere on the planet and don't need to come to the office? Is that the idea? Or
they got that, but Spotify has a great way of working, and always we talk about the art design from Spotify. But now with this politics, people are talking more about Spotify, and they say, okay, we have to do what Spotify does in our organizations. Well, I don't know if that is a good idea, or how can we personalize our organization?
Yeah, I mean, So the title of the article that you're referring to is How to Build Your Own Spotify Model.
Yeah.
And it's an article, even though it's 2 or 3 years old, it continues to get amazing amount of views. Somehow the Google optimization put it quite high in the list, sometimes even higher than Hendrik Nieberg's videos. And the whole premise of that article is that Spotify is an amazing example. They've figured out some really smart things, and you are probably not building a music player that you want to scale globally and grow at crazy speeds, right? Your organization is different. The organization you are trying to be probably is not the exact same organization as Spotify is. And that being said, Spotify itself isn't the Spotify it was 2 or 3 or 4 years ago when some of the white papers came out. So the whole point of the article is look at examples like Spotify or other companies, and then figure out what is it that you want to try to solve, right? What is the thing you're solving for? What are the principles that you're trying to apply? And then look at all the options, not only at Spotify, but look at lots of different options out there and pick the ones that make most sense. Also, apply experimentation mindset here, because maybe the thing that Spotify or Google or whatever did at that point in time sounds really smart and you want to try it, but also accept that it might not work and it might not solve your particular situation, right? That's the challenging thing with organizational change, is that you never exactly can predict the results until you try it and sit with it and marinate on it and stuff. For the work from home movement, right? You see many organizations shift to models where they allow people to work remotely or distributedly. There are actually really good examples out there of companies that have done that from the start, right? Remote first organizations like GitLab, for example. I actually wrote another article about GitLab and how they do it. They are on a really high growth model with thousands of people, and they never had any head office anywhere in the world. So people can join them from all places, which is cool. And also, if you're a traditional organization and you coming from a place where everybody was in the office all day, you cannot immediately quickly transition to that, right? It will take time, it will take learning. And especially, I mean, obviously because of the pandemic, we are all forced to think about that. And I'm very optimistic. I think it's good doing more remote work is good for the planet. First of all, it's good for people's work-life balance if it's managed well. It creates more flexibility and space, and it actually, in a lot of ways, it forces people to trust their teams, because no longer you can walk around and see if people are working, right? You just have to look more at the outcomes than on the hours that they spent in the office. So I'm positive, and I think every organization needs to go on a journey to figure out what is the right fit for them, what is the best balance. And sometimes it's highly limited by the mindset of the people that hold the power, right? I've definitely heard examples of managers that are installing spyware software on people's computers so they can spy on them to see if they are working or not, right? That's definitely not what we want. But there are also people out there that actually discovered, well, actually this works great. Why would we need to keep those very expensive offices in the middle of city centers? Why can't we just be more flexible with that? And it really forces an organizational shift where, like I said before, we have to be more deliberate about how we actually communicate, when we communicate, how we measure progress, how we set goals. Stuff is just not as easy or automatic as it was before. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that we need to become more deliberate about how we want to work, because that hopefully, that skill, that muscle will help you in the long term as well. But the downside, kind of the more pessimistic side of it, is that people will start going back to the office, at least partially. And the hybrid situation is very difficult to manage. So if you follow the founder of GitLab, he has a couple of blogs out there that talk about the hybrid organization. And you might have already seen it, where maybe you are now coming on a video call where 1 or 2 people are in the office and everyone else is remote on Zoom. And that just creates a terrible experience, especially for the people on Zoom. And there needs to be rules around that. You need to make sure that the people that go back to the office and the people that don't come to the office, that you get 2 classes of people, where one person is being treated with more credibility than the other, right? You want to create, make sure there's equality there. But yeah, I mean, there's many thoughts out there, and probably many books out there as well to talk about it. But it's going to be an interesting period.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and if we were like a bridge generation, now we are even more a bridge generation that we can make changes.
Yeah.
From now, and will be. I hope that it takes the good way of how, as what Carol said from Novel, that we have to build back better.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think we go there. Finally, I want to ask, probably if you say like, and already you have like you work in like a self-management team, but how does it works on a consultancy? How it helps? How it is hard to do it, or how it goes working that way?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we are roughly 25 people at the moment. We are fully remote, so we have been like that for a while now. We used to have a headquarters in New York, but we got more and more people and projects different places in the US and different places in the world, actually. So we are a remote culture, and it's good and challenging, right? I mean, because nobody has a boss. There's no manager helping us what to do or telling us what to do, which is a good thing. And also it means that we are all org designers on our own organization as well, right? So if you feel attention, you need to bring governance to help to solve it. We have some radical experiments going around our self-set pay, for example, the way we do our hiring process. And you definitely just keep following the Radius newsletter and our blog, because there will be more fun stuff coming out. Yeah, I mean, we try to practice what we preach. We try to try out things on ourselves before we try it with our clients, and that actually is also creates credibility, right? If a client says, yeah, that sounds really strange and radical, and then we say, yeah, I know, and it works for us, so let's try and see what it could do for you as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I like to listen, to this, telling all this experience. But well, I think Jurriaan is a good place to close. And what was a great conversation. Hope that you enjoyed too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and thanks for having me. And if you want to learn more about the book, it's available on Amazon. You can look it up at formula-x.co. There you find more links and more content as well. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, for the org designer listeners, if you enjoy Patrick Lencioni's books like 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, or the Phoenix Project, for example, is another good one, or The Goal from Goldratt, right? Those are all business novels. It's a very similar structure. If that is something that's appealing to you, I'd love to hear what you think of my book, and good luck with that, everything that you learn from it.
Yeah, definitely. I learned a lot, and it's pretty entertaining also, and it's very, educational too, the way it's written. And if you also a fan for Formula One, you will love it even more, for sure.
Yeah.
So I will say goodbye in Spanish. So, muchas gracias por escucharnos. Reinventándonos podcast es dirigido por un servidor, Luis Salas, y producido por Polymath, una red de consultores que acompañamos a las organizaciones en su cambio organizacional y las preparamos para el futuro. Pues bueno, ahora ve a reinventar algo. Muchas gracias. So, thank you so much, Jurriaan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.